Good afternoon. Welcome to the Public Works Committee for May the 31st, 2021. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. Members are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during the meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they wish more time to ask questions or make comments. I don't have my video on. Sorry. Maybe because it doesn't want to go on. Sorry, I thought I had it on. All right, I'll continue. I'm going to commence with the roll call. Please indicate your presence when I call your name. Councillor Collins.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Danko.
I'm present.
Councillor Farr.
Good afternoon, Chair Vanderbeek.
Good afternoon, Councillor Farr. Councillor Ferguson.
Present.
Good. Councillor Jackson.
Chair Vanderbeek, Ward 6 has joined you.
Thank goodness. Councillor Marula.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Present.
Good afternoon, Councillor Marula. Councillor Nan.
Good afternoon, present.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
I'm here, thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
I'm present. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Whitehead is on leave. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a few changes to the agenda. We have an added delegation request, item 6.2, from Marco Viviani, Commune Auto, respecting item 10.1 on the agenda, which is the free-floating car share pilot program. And that would be for today's meeting. We also had an added registered speaker, Herman Turkstra, for item 9.1 on the agenda, which is the proposed permanent closure and sale of a portion of road allowance abutting 38 Staunch Street West in Hamilton. Appendix B to item 10.1, which is the free-floating car share pilot program report, has been revised to update the last column heading to read column 3 set penalty. It did read column 4 set penalty, so just to note that minor revision there. And those are all the changes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Is there any discussion on the agenda as amended? Seeing none, we'll require an electronic vote. Vote is on the screen. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Are there declarations of interest? I see none. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was May the 17th, 2021. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve those minutes? Moved by Councillor Nan, seconded by Councillor Pauls. Any discussion on the minutes? I see none. We'll need an electronic vote on that. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Delegation requests. 6 is Bianca Caramento, Bay Area Climate Change Council, respecting item 8.1. It's the Green Fleet Strategy Report and Action Plan for today's meeting. And item 6.2 is Marco Viviani, Communal Auto, respecting item 10.1, free-floating car share pilot program. And that is for today's meeting. May I have a mover and seconder to approve the delegation requests listed as items 6.1 and 6.2 for today's meeting? I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Collins. Any discussion? Thank you. We'll require an electronic vote. And that's approved unanimously. Thank you. Item 7. Item 7.1 is Waste Management Advisory Committee meeting minutes from March the 9th, 2021. May I please have a mover and seconder to receive item 7.1? I need a mover and a seconder for item 7.1. Moved by Councillor Danko, seconded by Councillor Nan. Any discussion on that? Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I was surprised.
Councillor Ferguson, I need you to turn your video off. I can't understand you. Not quite enough broadband.
Yeah, I'm still surprised, Madam Chair, when I read the minutes, and there was no discussion around the 3-position garbage chutes in new multi-residential that would allow for anybody in any floor to put in green bin material, blue bin material, and waste. And so I'm just curious to know, since that wasn't on the agenda and Public Works was supposed to be reviewing this for planning, has Public Works given up on this and not going to proceed with putting the triple chute in or the deflectors at the bottom to allow for triple chute? I don't know whether to direct that to Craig or the chair, but I'll leave it to you, Madam Chair, to pick the right person. Or Angela.
Craig, are you on? I don't see you, but that doesn't mean that you're not somewhere.
Yes, I am here, Madam Chair.
There you are.
I'm through you to Councillor Ferguson. No, staff have not given up on this. Meetings have been conducted with the DILG group and planning. Angela Story is on the line and she can give you an update on this.
Thank you. Angela?
Angela?
Perfect. Hi, it's Angela Story, the Manager of Business Programs and Environmental Services. So, Councillor, through the chair to Councillor Ferguson, the minutes that we submit from Waste Management Advisory Committee, there's always sort of like just a brief update of what was included. So, on that, on those minutes, you'll see an item related to the waste design requirements that was discussed, and we definitely spoke about chutes at Waste Management Advisory Committee. Councillor Danko actually brought it up. It was after the other Public Works Committee meeting, Councillor Ferguson, where you had brought it up. So we had a fulsome discussion at Waste Management Advisory Committee that day. And as a result, you'll recall that we were going to be looking at chutes in the future. So we have moved that into the current phase of the project. We have, as Craig mentioned, met with the Development Industry Liaison Group a couple of times. We're working with the West End Home Builders Association to get their opinion and feedback on our current draft requirements. So you'll see something coming back to Public Works Committee after the draft is finalized. Hopefully, we're aiming for October.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay, I'm just, Madam Chairman, I'm just very concerned that this is not getting the attention it deserves. We have so many new towers going up in the downtown area, as Councillor Farr can attest to. There's on James Street, John Street, and King Street. There's towers that have been approved. And for as long as I've been on council, I've been hearing from staff that the big problem we're having is breaking the 50% diversion rate is multi-residential. And this is not moving expeditiously, particularly with the new towers coming on stream. I sensed at one of the public meetings, the owner said, yeah, that's available. I heard planning staff say we're waiting for policy from Public Works. And now it's October. Well, the site plan could be approved for those facilities before that date. So I'm just a little surprised with the amount of tension I've been hearing over the years about multi-residential and the lack of diversion, that we're not giving this the urgency it deserves. I don't necessarily need a response to that. I'm just going to keep the feet to the fire and keep asking questions about this because I'm concerned about it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion on this? Okay, so it was moved by Councillor Danko and seconded by Councillor Nan, and the vote is on the screen. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 8.1, Staff presentation on Green Fleet Strategy, the Green Fleet Strategy Report and Action Plan, PW 03147E. I'd like to call upon Rome D'Angelo, Director of Energy Fleet and Facilities Management, to present.
Thank you. It's Rome D'Angelo, Director of Energy, Fleet and Facilities. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee. Today, staff will be presenting the City Green Fleet Strategy and the means of combating and reducing emissions and pollutants into the atmosphere. A green fleet is a fleet that does its best to minimize fuel consumption and exhaust emissions. It also reduces emissions of greenhouse gases that cause climate change and the air pollutants that create smog and cause negative impacts to health. Transportation accounts for a quarter of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, of which half come from passenger cars and light trucks. Today's recommendations are about contributing to achieving the goals and objectives of the city's strategic climate change actions. As we move forward with our climate change action plan, it's vital we make necessary changes with our organization to be more sustainable. Having a green fleet strategy in place will allow us to lead by example and take tangible actions in the fight against climate change. So before we start our presentation, I'd like to take this opportunity to give special thanks to our dynamic fleet management team, our energy office, our finance team, who have all made considerable contributions to this report. At this time, I'd like to introduce Tom Kagianis, Manager of Fleet Services, who will be presenting the Green Fleet Strategy. Thank you.
Tom?
Good afternoon. Just turn
Good afternoon.
on. And thank you to the chair and the committee members for allowing me to give you the presentation on the Green Fleet Strategy. So let me just share my screen. Everyone can see that okay?
Yes, we can see that.
Very good. Okay, so this is our Green Fleet Strategy Report. So just a little bit of background. In April of 2020, the city issued a request for quotation for the services of a consultant. The consultant was to provide a Green Fleet Strategy Report. And the purpose of the Green Fleet Strategy Report was to provide the City of Hamilton Fleet Services Group with some recommendations and alternative actions. And this is in response to the climate change emergency motion that was adopted by City Council on March 27, 2019. So the proposed recommendations and alternatives are in support of the Bay Area Climate Change Summit solution to decommission diesel vehicles by 2030 and electrify all city vehicles by 2050. So this presentation will provide an overview of the consultant's 25 recommendations. It will outline the consultant's 3 groups of summarized solutions and finally give Fleet's recommended immediate action plan from each of those 3 groups of summarized solutions from now until the end of 2024. So the consultant looked at a set of data that we provided to them from March 2019 to March 2020. And put together some quick facts as you see here. I'm not going to go through all of these numbers individually, but would like to draw your attention to the last line in particular of greenhouse gas emissions that we produce of just over 9,300 metric tons per year. And I'd also like to bring to your attention that this does not include fire, EMS, or HSR in this study. So the consultant identified 25 recommendations and Fleet created this tracking tool which outlines all the recommendations. It also includes max and GHGs for each of the recommendations. And we also categorized each of these recommendations by either previously implemented actions, immediate actions, which would happen in less than 1 year, short-term actions that would happen between 1 to 3 years, long-term actions for 3 years plus, and any of those items that required any additional analysis. So the groups of solutions, the three groups of solutions are right here. Group 1 included life cycle optimization and best management practices. Group 2 included low carbon fuel switching options. And Group 3 included transition to battery electric vehicles. So in Group 1, there were 17 recommendations in this area. The first section balanced capital expenditures and optimizing life cycles, vehicle life cycles, would amount to a potential reduction of GHGs of 17 tons per year. Best management practices, which include lightweighting of vehicles, increasing or lowering rolling resistance of vehicles, and included some driver eco training, anti-idling training and a policy, and some technologies related to route planning and optimizing trips and reducing trips. The Group 2 solutions were for fuel switching. So there were 6 recommendations in here and included various scenarios for E85 fuel, which is an ethanol blended fuel of 85% ethanol and 15 regular conventional just gasoline. Biodiesel with a B10 average annual blend. 3 scenarios under compressed natural gas scenarios, which would include light duty vehicles, which typically pickup trucks and SUVs, in the medium and heavy duty class of vehicles, and also looked at an option of converting all vehicles, light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles, to natural gas. The consultant also looked at using renewable natural gas, and also looked at liquefied petroleum gas, otherwise referred to as propane, for our light duty vehicles in one of the scenarios, and light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles as well. And also gave us a little bit of analysis overview on the use of hydrogen. So in the group 3 solutions, there were 8 recommendations in this area, and generally a phased approach for battery electric vehicles in this area. So in the first scenario, phasing in 2021 for passenger vehicles only, and the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions of just over 2,900 tons per year. The next scenario was phasing of passenger vehicles starting immediately, and pickup trucks in 2022, and just over 3,700 GHG reduction, tons of GHG reductions. And then the last scenario of phase in passenger vehicles immediately, pickup trucks in 2022, and then carrying on with medium and heavy duty vehicles up into 2024 and beyond, and quite a large reduction in GHGs there of over 8,400. So Fleet's immediate action plan and recommendations are to enhance the replacement schedule, is to look at some lightweighting options, to introduce an anti-idling campaign and eco-driver training education program, some alternative fuels, and electrification of vehicles. So in the Group 1 solutions, life cycle optimization and best management practices, our consultant provided us with some tools to additionally look at enhancing our replacement schedule, and also provided an alternative to plug in an alternative fuel option for these vehicles, which allowed us to look at return on investment for options of different fuel types. So we could plug in natural gas or biodiesel, and it would show us what the cost would be going forward and what our return on investment would be on these options. So we'd also be looking at lightweighting. As I mentioned before, we're already in the process of finalizing the specifications for our aluminum trailers, and we're also looking at other options for dump boxes, aluminum dump boxes, and other materials for lightweighting. Additionally, we're looking at anti-idling campaign or training program. And this would be delivered through our compliance section. And we've added a segment to the driver safety and compliance manual training presentation. And we've also are looking at eco driver training, and this would be provided through the professional driver improvement course that we're currently delivering This would be an additional 50-minute course to that additional training, and we can deliver that to between 350 and 450 drivers annually. The next item we'd be looking at is an anti-idling campaign. So creation of posters, displays in common areas in all our operations yards, stickers for dashboards on vehicles, creating communication for display on monitors. So existing monitors in all our operating yards, we'd add some additional communication to our drivers. We're looking at some in-cab monitors that will tell operators how long they can actually turn their vehicle off and run some of the emergency lighting or any of the other tools or equipment that they need to run, and include a monitor in there so that they can see how long they can do that before they have to restart their vehicles in an effort to reduce idling. Group 2 solutions for low carbon fuel switching. Our recommendation is to look at biodiesel. We're recommending a 20% blend for the summertime and a 5% blend for the winter in 2 of our locations for 1 year as a pilot program. So in these 2 areas, we'd be looking at a mix of fuel storage tanks that are above ground and below ground, and we'd also be looking at vehicles and equipment that are stored inside and outside as well, so we can gauge if we're going to have any challenges with the use of that level of mixture of biodiesel. And the average annual GHG reduction expected is between 10 and 12%. And currently, there's no cost increase for up to a 20% blend of biodiesel. So we did a little bit of an informal survey on other municipalities, and I think of particular interest to me was the one in Thunder Bay, substantially different climate up there, and they are also using B5 from October to May and using B20 blend from May to October. City Toronto is using it extensively, December to March, B5, and in shoulder months, B10 blend, and June to August, B20. And some other areas of interest, Kitchener is trying a pilot program of up to B50 this summer. And Kelowna has been in the business of using biodiesel for quite some time now. So Group 3 solutions is our transition to battery electric vehicles. This is the single most largest impact to GHG reductions of all the solutions proposed. We did a 3-year forecast and included what's already been approved in 2021, and we see that there are 89 vehicles potentially that we can switch over to battery electric. This will be annual reduction of 335 tons of GHGs. And over the expected life of all these vehicles will be a reduction of 2,700 tons. So to do that, of course, we have to increase our charging station capability. So for all of these 89 vehicles, we're proposing 49 charging stations, 47 level 2 charging stations, and which is the slow fill station, and 2 of the level 3, the direct charge fast charge stations. So we have a phased approach for this. So in 2021, we're proposing 13 stations. 12 of them will be the slow fill stations and 1 fast fill station at the Wentworth Street location. 2022, 11 additional stations, all level 2s. 2023, 9 additional stations, all level 2s again. And in 2024, 15 stations level 2 and 1 fast charging station up at the Rymal Road location. So the financing model for this, the preliminary action plan will result in additional capital fund requests. The additional cost we're requesting from the unallocated capital reserve through annual capital requests for all of those years. And this is for the initial purchase of a battery electric vehicle only. So this is to for the incremental cost from gasoline to battery electric, and then subsequently any battery electric vehicles that need to be replaced will be replaced through the vehicle and equipment reserve through the contributions to reserve by all the operating departments. So the charging station equipment as well. New charging equipment infrastructure, we're requesting to be funded through the unallocated capital reserve. through annual capital requests as well. We will be requesting some periodically some additional funds to enhance the system, redundancies, and install some backup generator systems as required. We're currently preparing a application to submit for some grant funding in this regard, and that will provide 50% of the funding for the charging station infrastructure. And we're requesting to start a new reserve fund for the charging stations replacement strategy. So that will be contributed to from the users. For every kilowatt that they use, we'll add a premium onto that, and that premium will go into the reserve and will fund replacement of charging station infrastructure. So just a summary of the costs over here. From 2021 to 2024, vehicle premiums for electric vehicles in the range of 1.7 to 2.2 million. For charging infrastructure, assuming the grant is approved, will cost 300,000, 600,000 if it's not approved. Lifetime fuel savings less the cost of kilowatt hours that will be used to charge the electric vehicles. The overall savings is 895,000. Lifetime maintenance costs of vehicles, we're projecting to be at 50%. It's relatively conservative. And this is because electric vehicles, for the most part, have about 90% less moving parts in those vehicles. So we anticipate lower maintenance costs. So a summary of GHG reductions. For that total range from 2021 to 2024, electric vehicles that will be implemented, 870 tons of GHG reduction. For the anti-idling and eco driver training programs, 1,500 tons of GHG reductions. For the biodiesel, over 2,600 for a total of over 5,000. But that 1 year alone, when we get to 2024, if we've implemented all of these solutions, the annual reduction will be 1,725 tons, or 18.4% reduction overall. So that is my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Could I ask you to drop your presentation so that I can see
Yes, I certainly will.
whether anyone wants to ask you any questions? I don't see anyone asking to speak. So have I missed anything? Councillor Jackson, the floor is yours.
Thanks, thank you, Madam Chair. I did click on the microphone just to advise you. I did my normal protocol. Anyways, so Manager Kajanis, thank you for the incredibly progressive update and thorough presentation on the Green Fleet strategy. I was just intrigued. You said at the beginning certain fleets, including the HSR, were not included. Which ones besides the HSR were not included, Madam Chair? Through you, please.
Tom?
Through the chair, HSR was not included in the study. Police, fire, and EMS were not included.
Okay, so all the three emergency services were not included. I'll get to that in a minute. And the HSR wasn't. I'm intrigued, Manager Kajanis, why the HSR fleet of, I think we've got nearly 300 buses, between 280 and 300, all jammed up at the Mountain Transit Center. I know we've got a hybrid of a mix of hybrid diesel, compressed natural gas, a few electric buses. So I'm just curious, may have not been your decision, but I'm curious as to why the HSR fleet of diesel buses wasn't included.
Tom?
Through the chair, we did narrow the focus on this just to include the vehicles that my area is responsible for. However, I will mention that we have had discussions with HSR specifically to the with regard to the use of biodiesel and their potential interest in jumping on board in that regard.
Councillor?
Okay, so it sounds like a conversation is continuing, Manager Kajanis, with the HSR, because regardless of where the whole debate in 48 hours, Madam Chair, will go on Wednesday regarding LRT funding and all the Q&As we'll all have, obviously I think there's a tremendous desire amongst at least my constituents, and I think the city overall, to electrify the entire HSR fleet eventually. So I guess given the timeliness of everything and all the talk of public transit and electrification of it, I was just very curious and surprised that even for your presentation today, the HSR diesel portion of their fleet wasn't included. Madam Chair, just through you to the manager for a possible concluding comment, please.
Tom?
Yes, through the chair. We do have continuing conversations with HSR with regard to what level mixture of biodiesel they would be comfortable with doing a pilot on. I could tell you at this point, the conversations, we have not finalized what level or if at all they would like to land on trying biodiesel, but we are continuing those conversations.
Okay, I'm satisfied to hear that obviously it's on the radar for both departments, Madam Chair. And again, very progressive report and recommendation before us today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I stopped my video before I started this time, Madam Chair. So what a very progressive report. I'm impressed by it. And the best part is it looks like if you look at the paybacks, it's going to be paid back very, very quickly, just through savings on maintenance and on fuel cost. And so I want to thank Tom and the rest of the team for putting this together. Just on the HSR fleet, have we already not made a decision to stop buying diesel buses and move them all towards natural gas?
Who's here who can answer that?
I'm sure Dan can.
Yeah, I'm just looking for him. Dan, are you here? There he is.
Hello, Madam Chair, Dan McKinnon, General Manager, Public Works. That's correct. We did get direction from Council to stop purchasing buses that are anything other than natural gas. And so we were on that track to do that anyway, but we will have diesels that will work their way out of the fleet over the next few years. And so to the point that Tom made about possibly using biodiesel, we're going to have a look at that to see if the remaining diesel buses that will be working their way out of the fleet could be operated on the biodiesel. And in addition to that, I know Debbie's team is working to bring back a report on the potential of going to electric. So that's certainly on the horizon, and we expect to be doing that in a big way. It's just a matter of what's the best way to transition from where we are now to that in the future.
Thanks, Dan. And the 1,725 annual tons, by 2024, if we implement this, what does that mean to the city's greenhouse gases? I know we wanted to be at 50% by 2030, and I think we were over 40% already. Will this put us over the top and get us past the 50% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2030?
Tam?
So through you, Madam Chair, if I could, I see Tom Chessman's on the line. Tom is the fellow I rely on pretty consistently to have a sense of where we are in that. So if I could invite Tom to maybe give an answer to that.
Thanks, Dan. Tom?
Tom?
Thank you. Tom Chessman, Manager, Energy Initiatives and Energy Fleet and Facilities Management. Yeah, in terms of the emissions for the corporate profile, we're at 42% reduction. This will certainly contribute and obviously move us forward. It won't quite get us to our target for 2030, which is 50%, 50 reduction from that base year 2005. For instance, we need about 16,000 tons reduction to get there corporately for our city corporate assets and operations to get to our 2030 target. So it's a great contributing factor. But to answer your question through to the councillor, it will not get us to that point just on this alone.
Is 16,000 tons the total reduction from the time we started this program, or is what we're left to go in order to hit the 2030 target of 50% reduction?
Through the chair, it's what we have to go to get to the 2030 target, and we started over 100,000 tons, and we're 42% from using the the emission reporting is a year behind. It's 2018 data, and we'll be coming forward in another couple months to report on the 2019 emission data in our 2020 annual energy report. But I don't want to steal the show from Tom Kay.
Okay, because it looks like they reduce it by a further 10%, which get us close to the 44-45%.
10% of what we need to. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's all. That's great presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And I have no further speakers. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder to defer the consideration. Oh, well, let's do the report first. To receive the presentation. I need a mover and seconder to receive the presentation. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Ferguson. And the vote will be on your screen. And this is receipt of the presentation only. Councillor Danko? Councillor Danko. Oh, he's thumbs up. And that is approved unanimously. Thank you. Now, as we have a delegate who is going to be speaking to this, I'd like to have a mover and seconder to defer consideration of the report until after we hear the delegation. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Farr and Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on that? No? Okay, the vote will be on your screen. For 8.1 until after 9.3, which is the last delegate. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Delegations, item 9.1 is the proposed permanent closure and sale of a portion of road allowance abutting 38 Stration Street West. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so I hope it was correct. In Hamilton, it's PW report 21034, and it is regarding Ward 2. As required under the city's bylaw, number 14-204, a public meeting is required. Notice of this public meeting was provided and posted on the City of Hamilton's website. The notice advised that anyone whose lands are prejudicially affected may appear before the committee. The clerk has advised that one individual has pre-registered to be a virtual delegate. At this time, I'd like to call upon the registered speaker, Herman Terkstra, to delegate. Please unmute your microphone, turn on your video, and you will now have 5 minutes to present. And I won't start the clock until you start speaking. Mr. Terkstra.
Thank you. Am I coming through all right, Madam Chair?
You seem to be coming through just fine.
Thank you. The request today is, first of all, I'm here on behalf of the Planning and Traffic Committee of the North End Neighborhood Association. The request actually is not to make a presentation today, but to defer any decision of the committee until the next meeting of this committee under the following circumstances. This particular project, and when I call it the project, I'm referring to the development of the block at the corner of Bay and Strand as being under consideration and contentious for several years. As Councillor Farr will remember, Madam Chair, this had the highest petition of any petition in the ward that I'm aware of. Over 1,000 people signed to keep the land sold for development as a park. And land was, however, sold. Agreement was reached with a development consortium as part of the Jamesville project. Our committee has had excellent meetings, public meetings with the developer. And we learned at the last meeting that the developer is not proceeding at this time with seeking for approval of the development on this site. And I anticipate that we will be talking with them about their plans very shortly. Last November, I wrote to the city, to the clerk, and asked that we be notified of any consideration of the street closing because it's tied into the retention of the park. And in November of last year, I was told that it would be coming up in front of this committee and that we would be given notice. Unfortunately, the person that I was communicating with was on leave and arrived back on Tuesday of this week. On Tuesday, I had a phone call from one of the people who are involved in this park project, saying that there was a rumor that something was happening at the city hall this week. I went on the Public Works website on Wednesday morning, and there was no agenda and there was no report. So I started inquiries about that and found out that we're here today. The problem is that the whole goal of my correspondence with the city in November was to give the Neighborhood Association Committee an opportunity to consider the staff report and to give you their input into that in a considered fashion. And because of the fact that we didn't receive notice of this until Wednesday afternoon, that has not been possible. Our committee meets regularly on the third Wednesday night of each month, and we'll be meeting on the 23rd of June. And so I'm asking the committee to defer a decision on this and to give the committee an opportunity to make a presentation to you on this concept. In my respectful submission, there is no serious time issue on this. Firstly, the land is zoned for public open space. It's designated for residential development in the secondary plan. And mea culpa, it's because I missed that. We saw the zoning bylaw maps and didn't notice that this little tiny spot had been designated for residential. But even if this were approved today, nothing can happen until the zoning bylaw is changed. And given the amount of opposition to the loss of the park, I think it's fair to say that there would be an appeal of the zoning change. So with respect, Madam Chair, there is no real harm that will come from making the decision a month from now rather than now, except that you will hear the considered opinion of a serious group of people who take the affairs of their neighborhood very seriously. So I'm asking that you give us an opportunity to make a proper presentation on the staff report and on the history of this project to you at your next meeting and not make a decision today because I'm not able to give you any motions or resolutions from our committee because we simply haven't had time to do that given what happened with the staff member and us not finding out about this until late last week. But I'd appreciate it if you could defer decision on it until proper presentation by our committee. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And that was perfect timing, 5 minutes. All right. Questions? Councillor Farr.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for joining us short notice, I guess, Herman. We appreciate it. I really have no problem, actually, now that I've heard you speak with respect to a deferral. I as well have attended, I think, most of the meetings with the proponent of this and, of course, the Jamesville blocks as all in one as part of our City Housing Hamilton project. So I just want to get a better handle. You're suggesting if we defer, it probably would be for maybe not one but two meetings from now, Madam Chair. But what's before us is not the former tot lot lands. It's a portion of it, which is actually currently city road definition, and what's before us is essentially a housekeeping matter to bring it all into, to retain it and then ultimately sell the entire based on parcel. So the presentation that is going to be made, I know you haven't had a chance to get together, I guess, with your planning traffic committee of the North End Neighborhood Association. But is the presentation, would you expect that to be on just the parcel that's before us, the item that's before us, or a sort of history lesson on the land itself?
No, it would be on why this road should not be closed.
Okay, so we're talking about Okay, gotcha. All right, you know what? I respect that. It's if you were advised that you would have opportunity once this did come before us to go back to the Planning Traffic Committee and have that conversation, prepare a delegation, and you feel that wasn't afforded to you at this particular occasion because, as you say, there's no really pressing issue as of yet. I'm perfectly fine, and hopefully my colleagues will agree to defer it. I might have a couple of questions of staff, Madam Chair, at the appropriate time. And again, Herman, thanks for taking some time out to make this brief request with us.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And I don't see any other speakers with questions. The only thing I wanted to point out is that I think that the next meeting is probably too early for the group.
That's what I thought.
The following meeting is July 7th. Is
I'm
that not correct? I believe it is.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is Alicia Davenport from Clerks. That would be correct. The Public Works Committee meeting on July 7th would be when we would hear this matter if it's deferred.
So if you're deferring it, it would be to July 7th. And I don't have any other speakers. So I'll come back to you, Councillor Farr.
So Herman's still there. July 7th works, Herman?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, I'm fine with July 7th too, if my colleagues are, Madam Chair. I do have just a few questions of staff, though, just to, and if Mr. Turkster wants to hang in there, that's fine.
Okay. Do you want to receive the presentation and move on to questions for staff? Or
yes, that's the way
the usual way we do it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you had a reason to do it any differently. And Mr. Turkster is welcome to stay on the video and to listen. So can I have a mover and I'm sorry, did you want to say something? Do I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation? Move by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Jackson. And that will require an electronic vote. And that carries unanimously. And that was for receipt of the delegation. And so, Councillor Farr, you had questions? Oh, sorry. Oh, close the public meeting. I'm sorry. You're right. I forgot. We do need to close the public meeting. Well, the clerks is right on top of it. They're up there waving their arms around. All right. So, as we do not have any other members of the public registered to speak to this item, may I have a mover and seconder to close the public meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Farr. And I don't see any discussion on that, so the vote is on the screen. And this will officially close the meeting. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. The public meeting is now closed. Now, shall we put the report on the floor and then your motion can come from that? May I have a mover and seconder to put the report on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Collins. Questions and discussion from the committee regarding the report. Councillor Farr.
I'll second putting it on the floor too. Do we have to vote on that, or just? Oh, it's on the floor. And then
no, it's on the floor. It's on the floor. We'll vote.
I'll move to defer at the appropriate time. But just on the delegate and some of the comment about the history through you, and it might be good to remind some of the colleagues that were around even 2 terms ago when we talk about Baystron. There is certainly a history. There's a number of stories from even well before my time. This section of P1 parkland at current use, labeled as such because we went in long before most of our time and expropriated a few homes to accommodate what was a bad idea at the time and one that never came to fruition, which was a ring road in and around the perimeter of the North End. I'm glad, and I'm sure the delegate and a lot of folks in the North End are glad that never happened. But that was why this parcel came into existence. I don't know. Let's assume it's around 30 years ago. So there certainly has been no shortage of engagement. I remember once, it was probably 7 years ago, I had the occasion to, as we all did at the time, knock on a lot of doors, and I found there was even some well-engaged folks in the neighborhood actually had put flyers in people's doors saying that FAR wanted to build a city housing high-rise on this parcel. No idea where that came from, why that was put out there, but I certainly had to move fast to share that certainly isn't the case, but it's unfortunate. But stuff like that has also occurred, and certainly that has meant that I have had to be extra diligent in engaging and making certain people were aware of what's going on. So let's fast forward to 2017 as the report references. And do we have a planning staff present, Madam Clerk?
I don't know. I don't think so. They would not normally be in a Public Works committee meeting.
We had a planning. Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering if Gord McGuire was here, because he would be in charge of the road closure side of it. There's Gord. I don't know if he can answer your questions about the planning side of it.
From a planning perspective, Gord, and I appreciate it if you don't know for certain, but the report actually speaks to it. But this RFP process is complete. The proponent has been chosen, and this is based on as part of the bigger picture as it revolves around the Hamilton's first, potentially, Sam might beat us to it, mixed income community, correct?
Through the chair, Councillor Gord McGuire, Director of Engineering Services. I do know that both Ray Kessler and I believe Chris Phillips are on the call, who may be
Ray's good. Yep, sorry about that.
Better versed in that side of the topic. If you have any questions about the road closure, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Yeah, Ray would be perfect. Sorry, I forgot that. From the Planning and Economic Development Department, Real Estate Division, Ray Kessler.
I'm waiting for him. I don't see him. Oh, there he is. Ray, welcome. Did you hear the question, Ray? We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you. If you're speaking, we're not hearing you.
You're on mute, Ray.
Yeah.
Ray, if you take your headphones off and unplug it, you might be able to speak through your computer.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. My apologies. Through the chair, that's 2 for 2 the last 2 times I was in front of committee. Can you repeat the question?
The exercise of the RFP, it's been decided in this parcel as part of the overall picture on the City Housing Hamilton Mixed Income Project, correct?
Yes, through the chair. This did form part of the RFP process, and certainly part of the terms of the contractual arrangement that we would have with the developer.
So it's a contractual arrangement through you, Chair. Then this piece is part of the overall base drawn piece, but this is the piece, as the delegate noted, and as the report indicates, it's currently designated road, and it's an exercise. I say this, and I'm glad Herman's still paying with us, because with Turkster Mazza, he's been around a long time as a planner and a planning lawyer. So I want to be very careful of my words, because he's already mentioned that in all likelihood there's going to be an appeal when it comes time to the zoning. So I mentioned this is more or less a housekeeping exercise. And when you mention contractual, is it in relation to the contract and that exercise that's already played out? Is that a fair thing to say publicly? It's a more or less a housekeeping exercise through you, Chair.
Ray?
So So through the chair, that is correct. There was an RFP process as directed by council to be undertaken. And so in terms of the arrangement or the proposal that was received and accepted and approved, this is a matter of trying to recognize or reconcile the lands that were included as part of that RFP process.
Okay, thanks. We don't, Ray or Chris, I saw Chris Phillips also from Planning and Economic Development. Just from the planning side, I don't want to make an assumption of what we're going to receive from the North End Neighborhood Association Planning and Traffic delegation when it comes July 7th. I look forward to it. I suspect it might be, but can't say for sure, the group at the very least wanting to, since Herman has indicated on the record here that they're only coming to delegate on what's before us. So this, I'd say, about a 1/3 parcel of the whole Baystron parcel. And with respect to that, I'm sure, having attended many public meetings on this and having this discussion publicly over the years, that they would at the very least, and again, just sort of spitball and predicting, can't say for sure, we'll know July 7th when they delegate, they want to respect the area as a green space or open space, and make sure it's not developed on. I'd want the same thing, and that's actually been bandied about and talked about, and assurances have been made, although not official, from both the consortia who are now behind successfully received this contract and will be building our mixed income community in Jamesville. And certainly it's what the community, most of the people I spoke to anyway, wanted to maintain some semblance of green space at this gateway to the north end, and it's what I wanted. So can we speak to that at all today? Or is there a planner that can confirm at the very least, and this is my last question, I just want to get it out there so folks are aware that I think there's a lot of us singing Kumbaya on making certain that this particular portion isn't built upon. So is that in any way something we can speak to, Ray, today through you, Chair, or Chris?
Well, through the chair, certainly there's a site planning process, and it has already been identified a requirement for part of the lands to be rezoned. But certainly those sorts of details would be fleshed out as part of that process through the planning process, as opposed to the process that we're undertaking here today, which is really just to stop up and close that portion of the road allowance or right of way that I think originally wasn't even necessarily understood to have been part of the road allowance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from an aesthetic point of view, and again at that gateway, a serious attention to some beautiful landscaping is something we all desire, including the proponents of the project. So that's all. I'll defer to
before you go on. Chris Phillips has had his hand up a couple of times. Could we let him just have a comment here?
Sure,
Councillor.
Of course. Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Councillor. You had asked the one question. The one thing I would add on this from a planning side is that, as Ray indicated, it would be at the planning stage that we actually determine what setbacks are and what green spaces are. A key thing when you look at the map on this is by closing the road, that actually allows the definitive lines for where you start the planning process. So the reality is that council has already approved the other site to be sold as part of this development, as you said. The ability for the developer to go through the planning process is kind of hindered right at the moment with not knowing exactly where the boundary line should be, and therefore the process of closing this road really establishes what the final elements are, so that they can then plan, rightfully so, a full site plan for the whole area.
So, Madam Chair, I got a subsequent to Ray then from real estate. So the proponent doesn't know. I thought it was always well known that it was the entire Baystron parcel. And this is just an exercise in a formality in that we always have known that there's I call it a third, I think it's less than that, of road that would need to be incorporated. And so we needed to carry out this housekeeping exercise. Sorry, so contractually, we said we've done this deal already with the proponent. I believe it was 2017, maybe 2018. And was the proponent, Ray, through you, Chair, not already under the expectation that we were talking about the entire parcel, notwithstanding there's two different labels?
So through the chair, that is correct, Councillor.
Thanks.
I think the difference, of course, and to Chris's point, is that you need appropriate setbacks and sight lines and things of that nature to be defined. And in that context, the precise property boundary and the definition of those lands would not have been completed. And this is really what we're doing here from we'll just call it a technicality perspective.
Just wanted to make sure the record was absolutely clear, and I appreciate both Chris and Ray for being here, and again, the delegation. And so if there's no other questions, I'm happy to defer until the July 7th meeting.
Okay, and do you have a seconder for that?
Councillor
Jackson. Councillor Jackson?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is deferral of this decision until we hear from the delegation on July 7th.
Madam Chair, I apologize, but I wouldn't want to put until we hear from the delegation on July 7th. I'm sure they will be here, but if you put those words in and for some reason they want to push it even further, I would like to close this off. It's been some years. So I would just simply like to say I'd like to defer this until the July 7th meeting. I'm sure they are as anxious as all of us to put this to bed, or at least proceed in whatever lane they want to proceed in. Thank you.
I'm sure you're correct. And
thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Councillor Pearson and Councillor Ferguson. We're waiting for your vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. And we're moving on to item 9.2, which is also a delegation. Bianca Caramento, the Bay Area Climate Change Council, respecting item 8.1, Green Fleet Strategy Report, PW 03147. I'd like to call upon Bianca to delegate. Please unmute your microphone and turn on your video, and you will have 5 minutes to present once you start speaking.
Great. Hello again. My name is Bianca Caramento, and I manage the Bay Area Climate Change Council, otherwise known as BAC. BAC is a collective of existing organizations across Hamilton and Burlington who have come together to catalyze climate action in our community. As you know, BAC is focused on making sure that Hamilton and Burlington are thriving net zero communities by 2050. I'm here today to speak on item 8.1. Thank you for delaying your decision on this item. BAC strongly supports the recommendations put forward today to proceed with and implement the Green Fleet Action Plan. At the regional level, transportation accounts for 17% of greenhouse gas emissions in Hamilton and Burlington. At the corporate level, fleet and transit fuel consumption account for 40% of corporate GHGs. The transition to zero carbon vehicles is therefore a necessary step towards meeting our climate targets. The proposal in front of you today includes actions that would reduce Hamilton's fleet emissions by 18% by 2024. This is a meaningful commitment over 3 years, and I commend staff for their efforts. Beyond 2024, the city stands to reduce up to 90% of its fleet GHGs by 2035, should it fall through with the other actions listed in the consultant's strategy. BAC therefore recommends the city commit to actions beyond 2024 as a next step. In the first 3 years proposed today, the city will have to invest in electric vehicle charging infrastructure, successfully transition some fleet to battery electric. Today's staff recommendations include pursuing matched funds from Natural Resources Canada to expand the city's EV infrastructure by 49 charging stations. BAC is fully prepared to support the city in a federal funding request in whatever way we can. The recommendations today will reduce the city's direct contribution to climate change, help to establish local fleet demand for zero-emission vehicles, support EV infrastructure, and reduce barriers to greater EV use. That is why BAC strongly supports this Green Fleet Action Plan. It's also why we asked the city to formally commit to actions proposed beyond 2024, and we look forward to supporting your efforts to transition successfully to a low-carbon future. Thank you for your time and continued efforts to reduce Hamilton's greenhouse gas emissions. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Bianca? I don't see any. Thank you, Bianca. I need a mover and seconder to receive the delegation, please. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Ferguson. And the vote will be on your screen momentarily. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9.3 is Marco Vivian. Communo Auto, sorry, I should practice that word. Respecting item 10.1, free floating car share pilot program. Again, members are reminded questions of delegations are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. I'd like to call on Marco to delegate. You can unmute your microphone and turn on your video, and you will have 5 minutes to present. I do want to remind you that the City of Hamilton does not permit delegations for the purposes of presenting unsolicited proposals by vendors to committee. The delegations are restricted to the provision of general information and or support or opposition to the recommendations contained within the staff report. Thank you. Marco.
Thanks. Thanks, Madam Chairman. Thanks, Councillor, for giving us a few moments express our opinion about this pilot project. I beg your pardon for my accent. That's a terrible accent. That may be the choice of words that is not always appropriate. Anyway, I'm Marco Viviani. I'm Vice President at Communoto. Communoto is the oldest car sharing company in North America. We operate since 27 years, and the larger one, 4,000 vehicles in 15 cities in Canada, from Calgary to Halifax, passing through Toronto and, of course, Hamilton, where some years ago we took over the service of community car share in order to continue develop it. Our main objective is to provide transportation services that replace car ownership and allow people to move in combination with transit and and active transportation without the need of owning a car. And this is not a commercial proposal. We do it because we believe this is a part essential of a new mobility, more sustainable. And this is the reason why we support the pilot project, and we think that you would have. First of all, free-floating car sharing is a service, or in general, car sharing, of course, is a service that allows citizens to fulfill their mobility needs without the need of a car. I probably guess that in a lot of your conversation, you realize how public transport and active transportation have their own limits, and car sharing helps in reducing that limits, in allowing sometimes when a household needs a car to have access to without being dependent from. Second, and I underline this fact that is very important. It's only in the aim of developing a service, a sustainable service, only also in the economic point of view, that this success can be achieved. Combining free floating with the most known station-based car sharing allows to maximize the attractiveness. Many studies has been done, and some are reported in the report, on how we can reduce car ownership and the number of cars, putting together these two services. And finally, I want to recall that this is a service for residents. Sometimes we could imagine that, Comunotò is putting car here and there for its own sake, but the car are moving around because people use them, and these people are resident. They decided not to own a car and to share it. On the other side, if this brings benefit to the collectivity, freeing up space and reducing congestion, on the other side, it's a kind of mobility offer that has its own rules and need that sometimes rules in the usage of the street space being modified to accommodate this kind of service. And this, I think, is what the pilot can demonstrate, that adapting some rules, we can have an important service in Hamilton without conflict with the other usage. So thanks, Madam Chairman and Councillor. I'm available for questions, if any.
Thank you. Any questions for Marco? I don't see any. I need a mover and seconder to receive the delegation, please. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. And the vote is on the screen. Thank you, and that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Viviani. Appreciate your delegation. And now we're going to go back to item 8.1 because the delegations are finished. Item 8.1 is the Green Fleet Strategy Report and Action Plan, PW 03147E. And I need a mover and seconder to receive the report. Sorry? To put it on the floor. Oh, excuse me. To put it on the floor. Sorry, can we do that again? Moved by Councillor Nan, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. To put this report on the floor. I just got to find the right place in my roadmap. Hang on a minute. That's what I'm at. It says to receive the report. Does it not? It does. So which is it?
Through you, Madam Chair, this is Alicia from Clerks. My apologies, I've made a mistake on your roadmap. It should be to put the report on the floor as there are recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, we're putting the report on the floor. Any discussion respecting 8.1? I see none. So we'll require an electronic vote. It was moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Was that right? Oh, I got the wrong thing in here. I'm really balling this up. I'm sorry. Moved by Councillor Nan, the Vice Chair of Public Works. Seconded by Councillor Ferguson. It's on the screen. I wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking at my notes. Okay, the vote's on the screen. And that carries unanimously. Now we're back to...
Sorry, Madam Chair, I don't believe I was able to vote on that. Just want to make sure my vote was recorded.
Okay, and what was your vote?
Affirmative. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, this is Alicia from Clerks. Just confirming that I did receive Councillor Danko's affirmative vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
And in my case, Madam Clerk, did you get my vote?
Councillor Marula?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, confirming I did receive Councillor Marula's affirmative vote as well.
Okay. All right. We are now on to discussion items. So this is item 10.1, the free floating car share pilot program. It is a pilot program for wards 1, 2, and 3. May I have a mover and seconder to put the report on the floor? Moved by Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Nan. Any discussion respecting 10.1? Councillor Jackson, Councillor Farr are the only two I see. Councillor Jackson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if obviously the appropriate staff are available, Manager Jenkins or Topolovic or Director Hollingworth, that'd be great. So if I recall now, just to refresh my memory, if it's flawed, please correct me. We had this before us a number of months ago, and I think Councillor Farr, in his advocacy for this program and his giddiness over the whole free-floating car share program, asked a question or two that triggered some concerns from somebody like this Ward 6 councillor and a few others. And this whole matter was referred back to iron out some of the complexities and what might cause complications. So I'm reading through it. I see that it seems to be better. First of all, I'm glad that it is just confined, if approved, towards 1, 2, and 3. So I see that clearly stated throughout this 9-page report. What I'd like to ask, though, Madam Chair, to confirm, one of the concerns I had from the last time we debated this, at the bottom of page 6 of the report, it says, under the proposed amendments, Madam Chair, the on-street parking, but this is about free-floating car share, the delegate who spoke earlier, Mr. Viviani, and about providing where people would pick up these cars, use them throughout the city, and then bring them back to the point of where they originally had picked them up. Free-floating car share vehicles will not be permitted to end their trip. In other words, return their keys and no longer use the vehicles on through highways in revenue-generating parking lots of the city. Car share vehicles may park on on-street meter parking spaces or municipal car parks during the active trip, provided they have paid to be there, are parked within the posted time limits, do not exceed the hours of operations in the respective municipal car parks. Here's my question. Free-floating car share vehicles that hold a valid permit, Madam Chair, will be exempt from the 12-hour time limit restriction imposed on on-street residential parking spaces. Can I presume that also mean in wards 1, 2, and 3 only? Through you, Madam Chair, please.
Thank you. And who's that going to?
Either Director Hollingworth or one of his two managers that authored the report.
Yeah, I'll just start off briefly. Brian Hollingworth, Director of Transportation Planning and Parking, and then I'll let Peter and Trevor elaborate on the details. But through the chair, thanks to Councillor Jackson for his rightly remembering some of the concerns. There was basically 3 concerns raised at the previous meeting. One was for the potential for cars to occupy streets, parking on residential streets where that parking was in high demand. There was a concern about giving a commercially owned company access to streets where they don't maintain the streets in terms of snow clearing, etc. And there was a concern about letting cars exempting those car share vehicles from the time limits, which you mentioned, Councillor Jackson. One of the things that we have done in the report is we have looked at other jurisdictions in terms of what they do in terms of the time limits. There seems to be a fairly good standard of 72 hours. Which seems like a long time, but in response to the comments that we received previously about the concerns, we have implemented something that will include in the permit where if there's complaints, i.e. Cars parking longer than people like to see, even longer than 12 hours, we will record those complaints and the car share companies will have to move the vehicles. With respect to the 12 hours, yes, they would be exempt from that, but again, subject to the complaints process. Most of the streets in wards 1, 2, and 3, some of the major streets like Main Street and King Street do have the 12-hour overnight restrictions, but a lot of them are just residential streets where we don't think it is going to be a massive problem. At least we don't get a lot of complaints in that regard. Anything to add, Peter?
Peter?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. It would, I think, to The second part of your question, Councillor Jackson, was it would be only in wards 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. So, Director Hollingworth, first of all, thank you for the reaffirmation of my memory was accurate from the initial debate. Thank you. Thanks for all that excellent information you gave. Manager Topalovic, you went right to my direct question, and you're saying that the 12-hour exemption, etc., is specifically for wards 1, 2, and 3. Is that what I just heard?
Peter?
Through Madam Chair, yes, that's correct. Just for in terms of the pilot program.
Terrific to hear. Thank you very much. So I don't have to worry about cars from this program potentially being parked for longer than 12 hours on East Mountain residential streets, where I have taxpayers that live there and want to park there with their family, friends, and visitors. Lastly, through you to the director or the manager, Madam Chair, the $271, let me just understand. So somebody in wards 1, 2, and 3 pays $271 annually to be part of this program and has to renew every year. Correct, Madam Chair, through you?
Okay, to Peter or Brian?
Go ahead, Peter.
Through you, Madam Chair, it would be a permit per car for the one-way car sharing company.
Can you elaborate a bit, Peter? So I want to be part of the program. I give a check for $271. I'm now part of the program. Do I have to renew that every year, or if I'm in good standing, it's a one-time, or what is it?
Through you, Madam Chair, just to clarify that question, yeah, for the user, for the people who would like, the residents who would like to use the cars, they would pay a membership fee into the community auto program, and they would be able to make one-way car sharing trips, which are actually charged per trip. The permit fee per car is actually charged to the one-way car sharing operator themselves for the permit to be on street. The individuals would pay into just like we have today. We have a community auto program for two-way cars where you have to pick up the car and bring it back to the same place. Those people pay a membership fee, and that membership fee would cover the use of the one-way car sharing cars as well.
Okay, Madam Chair. So then to conclude, Peter, again, today with all the revisions from you and Director Hollingworth and Manager Jenkins, whoever now is part of this program, they can use it in wards 1, 2, and 3. They can travel throughout the city during the course of the day, but they must return to wards 1, 2, or 3. Correct, Madam Chair? And that's my last question.
Peter?
Through Madam Chair, yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad we took some time to revise some of the concerns we had. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Farr, you're on the floor.
Yes, thank you. Actually, the previous speaker asked the same questions. I might have presented myself more giddily and less warily, but nonetheless, he's covered it, and I appreciated not only Councillor Jackson's, but the rest of the committee's opportunity to allow us to really hone down on the details. And Peter's been great, and Brian, and I'm glad the delegate came, and I've talked to many people about this, and I think, Madam Chair, it very simply represents yet another box checked in this council and previous council's quest to focus more on the multimodal, to focus more on the environment. And I know this will be successful, and hopefully to the point where everyone will giddily be looking to expand the program, but I think it's prudent to make it 1, 2, 3 for now. So thanks, Pete. Bye.
Thank you. Councillor Nan.
Thank you. Through you, just a couple of quick questions. And again, yeah, as previous speaker, the other questions I can mark off as being completed thanks to Councillor Jackson. So through you, if I could staff remind us how many vehicles we're talking about in this program?
Peter?
Through you, Madam Chair, assuming the additional ones for the one-way car sharing program, and just
Yes, specifically for the one-way, yes.
We anticipate somewhere in the range of 25 to 50 vehicles.
And if there is, through you, complaints processes clearly identified in the chart and in the appendices, should there be any complaints, how can you confirm how they would be addressed and to whom? So if I'm a resident and I'm observing a vehicle being there over at 72-hour limit, what would be the process?
Peter?
Through you, Madam Chair, we will we're requiring all the car share companies to have their number posted on their website. and that's prominent, and also be able to forward inquiries right to staff and the operators of who the car belongs to. And they will, once we have the complaint, regardless of how long the car has been parked there, we'll ask them to remove it within 24 hours, even if it's within the 72-hour period.
And last question through you, will the complaint number or call-in number be posted on the vehicles themselves?
Peter?
Just trying to take out the middle procedure where I can anticipate it should there be a complaint that we receive it directly to a ward office and then fire it through that way. So from that perspective, is there an opportunity for direct resident to company?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I believe there'll be the opportunity to do so, and that obviously the cars are clearly marked, but we could go to the next step to provide the contact information.
Terrific. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Pauls.
Thank you. I just have one question. If a car is parked, would the city take any responsibility, or who takes the responsibility if the car's parked for 12 hours and it gets damaged or stolen? Who's responsible for all that?
Peter?
Through you, Madam Chair, the car share companies are responsible for their own vehicles, and so they would have to take care of that in any maintenance or theft or vandalism.
So if somebody from, let's say, my ward takes the car and parks it downtown and it's damaged, and he's will deal with the company, not with the city at all, right? It's that. It's clear. If
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct, and that is the way it works even today with the two-way car sharing cars we already have in the city across two different companies.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see any more speakers, except that I would like to just note that I had a note from Councillor Wilson, who is the councillor in Ward 1, to confirm that she is completely supportive of the recommendations in the report. So I just want to note that because she's not on the committee. All right. So I need electronic vote. It was moved by Councillor Farr and Councillor Nan to put it on the floor, and an electronic vote to and that carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.2 is the capital renewal, the capital life cycle renewal for the West plant, the Westaby Arena Ice Plant. And it is an urgent matter. It's report PW 21035 for Ward 13. And may I please have a mover and seconder to put the report on the floor? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. Discussion respecting 10.2 or questions? I see none. Will require an electronic vote. Green. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. And now we're on to motions, which is 11. 11.1 is a private tree giveaway in Ward 5. Councillor Jackson, please introduce your motion.
Madam Chair, I will introduce my motion for Ward 6. Thank you very much. Moved by myself, seconded by the hardworking councillor from Ward 5, Chad Collins. Private tree giveaway, Ward 6, whereas the City of Hamilton has declared a climate emergency, whereas increasing the urban tree canopy by providing trees for planting on private property has many environmental benefits to the residents of Ward 6 and wider city, whereas private tree giveaways are not currently funded under our existing tree planting program, therefore be resolved. A part, the supply and distribution of approximately 1.5 meter tall, the old imperial measurement, about 4 foot tall, native trees at an upset limit of 5,000 be funded from my capital discretionary account, and B, the mayor and city clerk be authorized directed to execute any required agreement and ancillary documents, such terms, conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor. Seconded by Councillor Pauls. Seconded by Councillor Collins. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? I see none. So we'll have an electronic vote. Be on the screen in a minute. There it is. Sorry, say that again. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 11, the installation of traffic calming measures at various locations throughout Ward 6 in Phase 2. Councillor Jackson, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Yes, it is in Ward 6 again. Thank you, Madam Chair. And because, again, the hardworking councillor from Ward 5 was the only member of Public Works Committee to contact me over the weekend and offer his support to be the seconder. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Collins, installation of traffic calming measures at various locations throughout my ward, Phase 2, whereas the residents are requesting the installation of speed cushions on various roadways throughout Ward 6 via petitions, neighborhood engagement, to address roadway safety concerns as a result of speeding and cut-through traffic. Therefore, be it resolved that TOM staff be authorized and directed to install traffic calming measures on the following roadways as part of the 2021 traffic calming program. Number 1, Birchview Drive between Barrel and Lime Ridge Road, 2 of them. Number 2, Gatineau Drive between Summer Place and Rideau Crescent, 3 speed cushions. Number 3, Rideau Crescent between Moxley Drive and Gatineau, 2 speed cushions. Number 4, Larch Street between Moxley and Billington, 3 speed cushions. Number 5, Princeton Drive between Fennel and Sherwood Rise, 1 speed cushion. And number 6, Moxley Drive between Mohawk and Anson, 4 speed cushions. Madam Chair, that all these costs associated with the installation of traffic calming measures at the identified locations throughout my ward be funded from the Ward 6 minor maintenance account, the number noted there, at an upset limit, including contingency, not to exceed $84,000. And once again, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized, directed to execute any required agreements, ancillary documents, such terms, conditions in a form satisfactory to the city solicitor. And Madam Chair, this will add an additional total of 15 speed cushions to the 6 different roadways and lovely residential streets on the East Mountain. I want to give credit. I often have mentioned, and I need to give credit, first of all, from a staff standpoint, to Superintendent Dave Ferguson and LC Alicia Davenport, always for their guidance and help in formulating the language of my motions. And from a neighborhood petitioning standpoint, from Birchview Drive, Lou and Pat Weller led the charge. From Larch Street, Josh Chernega led the charge. From Princeton Drive, Bill Stewart and Barry Guy led the charge. And from Moxley, Rideau, and Gatineau, an outstanding activist in my community, Mrs. Carol Agnew, led all of those petitions as submitted with overwhelming support from each of these streets. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? I see none. We need an electronic vote, please. Councillor Ferguson, looking for your vote. Councillor Ferguson, we're looking for your vote. On Councillor Jackson's motion for speed bumps. Got it? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Are there any other notices of motion? See no hands. General information and other business. Let's do 13.1 first, which is amendments to the outstanding business list. I need a mover and seconder for the amendments to the outstanding business list. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Nan. Any discussion? Okay, we need an electronic vote. And that is on 13.1. Councillor Farr? Thumbs up if you don't have it. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Any other general information or other business? See none. We do have closed session minutes from May the 17th, 2021. Do you wish to move into closed session to discuss item 14.1? No? Okay, may I please have a mover and seconder to approve the closed session minutes of the May 17th meeting as presented? Moved by Councillor Danko, seconded by Councillor Merla. Yes? Any discussion on the minutes? On the screen. And carried unanimously. May I please have a mover to adjourn? Councillor Pearson, sorry, somebody want to say something? No? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Ferguson. The vote's on the screen. Don't leave till you vote. Missing anyone? And that passes unanimously. Have a great afternoon and a lovely evening. And thank you for your presence at the Public Works meeting.